Jesus' words, turn the other cheek, love your enemies, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Most people find these words undoable, if not impossible, certainly impractical. Even the great Catholic Christian G.K. Chesterton wrote, "The commands of Christ may be impossible, but they are not mad. They are rather like sanity preached to a planet full of lunatics." I think he was talking about us who find the words of Christ so high we can't get over them. But they are not always impractical, these words of Christ. Some of you know the story of Jackie Robinson, the first black professional baseball player. When he was told that he should not react to the racial slurs and even the violence that he would face as the first black pro baseball player, he asked the manager, are you looking for a baseball player who's afraid to fight? And the words of his manager have become famous even to those who don't follow baseball. "I'm looking for a ball player with guts enough not to fight back," he said. There was, crazy like a fox in that approach. And it won a respected place for black players in professional baseball and then on into all the other sports as well. Mahatma Gandhi, who won independence for India against one of the most powerful nations in the world at the time, Great Britain, back in 1947, won that independence by nonviolence, by not reciprocating violence against the violence that was done to them. And he said, true righteousness. And Gandhi had read our portion. He had read the New Testament. He had read the Sermon on the Mount and thought it was the most powerful, searching, spiritual writing ever, anywhere. He said true righteousness requires both courage and nonviolence, like Jesus taught. Gandhi was asked what he thought of Christianity, and some of you know his rather famous answer. He said he wasn't sure since, as far as he could tell, Christianity hadn't been tried yet. If you think Christianity is just a system of beliefs that you ascribe to and that's it, then Christianity has been tried indeed. But if you think Christianity is following the hard teachings of Jesus, maybe you're more of a mind to agree with Mahatma Gandhi. Maybe it hasn't been really tried yet. Now, that's not really true, of course. It is tried. Lots and lots of places. Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. She was practicing the teachings of Christ. So it is possible to live in this way. Martin Luther King said this. He preached, "It is no longer a choice, my friends, between violence and nonviolence. The choice now is nonviolence or non-existence." He went on to say it's time for all people of goodwill to come together with a massive act of conscience and to say, in the words of that old Negro spiritual, we ain't gonna study war no more. We may be coming, as Martin Luther King said, closer and closer to that day when it literally will be a choice between nonviolence and non-existence. With the size of our weapons, the world grows more and more dangerous. We don't knock out teeth anymore. We knock out cities. Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount are more, however, than just Midwest nice. They express a strong and subversive attitude of resistance for people caught in an impossible situation. For the Jews of Jesus' day, the impossible situation was the occupying Roman army, against whom armed resistance by the Jews would have been suicidal. So a slap to the face, a slap to the right cheek, would be given by a soldier as an insult. Now, a slap to the right cheek, you see, would be given with the left hand. And so the insult would be doubled because the Jews, for some reason, regarded the left hand as unclean. So Roman soldiers would slap the right cheek. Jesus says when that happens, offer to them your other cheek as well. And it wasn't an act of becoming a doormat. It was an act of nonviolent resistance. It was an act of shaming that soldier for his violence against you and against your people. It was an assertion of dignity in the face of an overpowering and violent hostility. It was an act of faith in God, who alone is to be obeyed and worshiped according to the Torah, according to the teachings of Christ. Others may take your property. They may imprison your body, but they cannot rule your soul unless you hand it over to them and so become like them. You can live as a child of God, Jesus taught, no matter what others do. When they go low, we can go high. Respecting the humanity, even of an enemy, can have surprising results. A man named Julio Diaz lives in New York City. And every night on his way home from work, he gets off the subway train one stop before his neighborhood stop because he wants to eat at his favorite diner. One night he stepped off the train. It was kind of dark and the platform was pretty much empty. And a young man walked up to him brandishing a knife, a big knife. Diaz said, "I pulled out my wallet and I told him, 'Here you go.' But as the young man turned to go, Diaz tried to stop him. He said, 'Wait, if you're going to be out robbing people tonight, it's cold. You're going to need this to keep warm.' And he took off his coat and handed it to the teenager. The boy stood there warily, knife in hand. Then he asked, 'Why are you doing this?' And Diaz told him this. He said, 'If you're willing to risk your freedom for a few dollars, you must really need money.' And then he said, 'Look, I was just going into this diner to get my dinner. Why don't you join me? Really, you're more than welcome.' The boy went with him. Now, Julio Diaz is a social worker. Maybe you shouldn't try this at home, But maybe he saw an opportunity that you and I might not recognize. Later he said, 'I just felt maybe he really needed help.' He and the teen went into the diner and they sat in a booth. And the waiters came by and they knew Diaz. They said hello and they took their order. And then the manager came out and they chatted, smiled. And then the dishwasher came out and talked with Julio Diaz. And the young boy said, you know everybody here. Do you own this place?" And Diaz said, "No, I just eat here a lot." The teen said, "Well, you're nice even to the dishwasher." And Diaz said, "Well, didn't anybody ever teach you that you should be nice to everybody?" And the boy said, "Sure, but I didn't think anybody actually, behaved that way." Diaz asked him what he wanted in his life, and he didn't really have an answer. The bill finally came, and Diaz said to the boy, "Well, I guess you're going to have to pay the bill. You have my money. But if you give me my wallet back, I'll treat you." Kid turned over the wallet. Diaz paid the bill and the tip, and then he gave the boy a $20 bill. And then he asked him for the knife, and the young man turned it over. The story was on public radio on the show Morning Edition. Diaz's last comment was, "I figure, if you treat people right, well, you can only hope that they treat you right." That's as simple as it gets in this complicated world. Maybe things aren't really as complicated as we tend to think or tend to make them. Not every story will have such a happy ending, that's for sure, but the good news is, when through trusting the Son, you become inwardly free to live your truth no matter what others do, then you are free indeed. Nobody can push your buttons and make you go low when they have gone low. You can take the high road no matter what others do or say. A church can also live by faith. We, as a church, can act not in fear of not having enough, but we can act in love and in hope and in trust in God. It really is not terribly complicated. God is with us, if we only dare to believe that. No matter what has transpired here at Grace Lutheran Church, no matter what will transpire here, we don't have to circle the wagons and think only of ourselves and only of our own survival. All things are yours, Paul wrote, whether preachers or presidents or the world or life or death or the present or the future. All belong to us, and we belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. Hallelujah.